Welcome to a jam-packed episode of the Self-Storage Report. Terry Campbell of Johnson Insurance is going to chime in. We all know it's been a hot-button issue, rising cost of insurance. Many loans in the self-storage space, $21 billion currently CMBS loans, none reported delinquent, but we're going to pull back the curtain and see if there's a looming problem in that space. The big topic of the day, my co-host, the brains and beauty of this operation, Chris Berg. I just bring the poor sense of humor. Is the 50-year mortgage. We're going to talk about what Bill Pulte, the former home builder on Trump's administration in the cabinet, proposed this 50-year mortgage. Really massive implications in what could happen, not only in self-storage, but in the macro economy. I am Thaddeus Campbell, S3 Partners. As I said, he's the handsome one, better known as the AI storage guy, Chris Berg. And we are here to teach you all you need to know in 30 minutes to make smart self-storage investments. Chris, welcome to the show. We are also going to have a very special segment with you later on in the show. Glad you're back from your trip, and we're going to dive into that later in the show.
It's great to be here, man. Great to see you and lots to discuss.
For sure. So let's dive right into it, right? We know that the 30-year mortgage has been the norm. We've been talking for months. In fact, I think we're on show number 24 since our very first show about things that are happening in the housing market. Movement has been incredibly slow, and that has had an impact in the self-storage industry for sure. Your thoughts on this proposal of a 50-year mortgage term?
I mean, does it really do much? I think at the end of the day is the question you want to ask yourself. I know President Trump was on Laura Ingraham. He said basically the same thing. He's like, look, it doesn't really do much except possibly help the banks, lower your payments a little bit. I think the real reason that we want to talk about here in the self-storage report is twofold. Number one is because obviously housing is the lifeline, at least it has been within the self-storage business. We've seen demand, down dramatically since COVID kind of go away. Everyone's stuck in these 3% mortgages. No one's really moving. So it's had a big challenge on demand. That's why you've had such a big conversation around ECRIs. I think the other big conversation for you and I to discuss, because we've been talking about this now since day one, you brought up, hey, this is episode 24, is that to me, this is another, arrow in the quiver, if you will, when it comes to what you and I have been talking about with this 18.6-year real estate cycle. We've talked about this book probably ad nauseum at this point, right? The Secret Life of Real Estate and Banking. We don't get paid to promote this book. We just want to encourage you that, hey, if you want to check into this thesis around where we think things are headed, this is another way where you begin to expand credit, do what you can to help people do things that maybe get them a little bit over leveraged. And then at the end of the day, everyone looks back and goes, oh, wait a second, the math doesn't really math. We might have some issues here.
Crazy you put that book up, and we're talking self-storage. I read that book starting March 15th of 2020 during COVID. Did a 75-day challenge where I had to read 10 pages of a book every day. That is not for the faint of heart, but if you're a real estate investor, it's literally the first book I recommend to anybody who asks me what they should be reading if they have anything to do with the real estate sector. And to your point, what we've seen in the previous cycles when we've had recessions, the GFC, obviously the savings and loan crisis in the late 80s, early 90s, before that, you can trace 13 of them all with the way back to, Alexander Hamilton and the creation of the first central bank in the United States. They all have this in common, that credit becomes very loose and fast right before the cycle crashes. And so to your point, is this another thing where the government's trying to stimulate the economy and it's making money maybe even too loose?
Well, yeah, and I think when you take this idea of the 50-year mortgage, there was another great interview I did for the Self-Storage Report recently with a gentleman by the name of Ari. He's just got a great background. That I hope you get a chance to watch this interview because he's really good at behavioral finance in the context of history, right? And so one of the things he talks about is that typically these bubbles happen when you've got people chasing yields with really unguided or misguided credit, right? It's not really being regulated that well. And I think you see a lot of it happen right now with this whole private credit situation that's taking place. I mean, it's definitely not regulated very tightly. We've seen some bankruptcies with some people that were trying to fund car loans and whatnot. So is that maybe one of the catalysts, what we're going to see in mid to late 2026? I don't know, but I think what's fascinating, and R and I talked about this, is the fact that it's always where you're kind of looking over here and then it's this other thing that begins to unravel the situation that you weren't really aware of. And then you go, oh, there's the confluence. I wish I would have seen that, 6 months ago and maybe shorted some stocks or whatever. But I just say, hey, this is one of these things, the private credit conversation, I think is one you want to be privy to because it's really opaque. And all of a sudden we might look up in mid to late 2026 and go, ah, that's why we're having some challenges right now. So we'll see.
Kudos to you, first of all. For those of you who are not subscribed, I urge you go to the YouTube channel right now, youtube.com/ at the Self Storage Report. Chris has started a new segment called the Self Storage Report Spotlight. Incredible interviews. We're going to have a clip later from Dave King and Dave Brown from Wentworth Properties who are on there. Also, you'll be able to find the segments of how faith fuels your business, as well as the full episodes and the shorts from the weekly TSSR show. So, Chris, thanks so much, and kudos to you for going the extra mile. I watched the Wentworth Properties interview last night. Unbelievable content, so educational. So thanks for putting all that effort in and making that happen. I want to flip now to a post that was up on LinkedIn earlier. Obviously, if you follow self-storage and you're on LinkedIn ever, you know who Armand Agajanians is. He put something up this week that really caught my attention relative to CMBS loans. Now, I don't know how familiar everyone that's watching the show is with CMBS. I'm going to tell you that I went on ChatGPT, the study section, and had it teach me about it because I wasn't super familiar with what CMBS is. But essentially, what a CMBS loan is in commercial real estate is it's a loan that's packaged together and sold as a bond. They tend to be a little bit higher in interest, and they tend to have less ability of somebody taking one of those loans to negotiate the terms of the deal. So they're a little bit more stricter in that sense. But Armand put this post up, and I'm going to share a graphic with our viewers here showing there's $21 million of outstanding CMBS loans in the self-storage sector right now. And what this is breaking down is what's technically past due. Now, the scary part of this, Chris, is these aren't being reported as past due. And what's crazy about CMBS is you're not supposed to be able to negotiate the terms. But what's happened over the last year, as a lot of loans that were given out in 2020 have come to their, or even 22 or 23, they're coming to the end of their interest only period. And the people that are running the loan are automatically extending the IO period. And why are they doing that? Well, because these assets that were given these loans aren't achieving a DSCR that even allows them to pay the principal payment, let alone get a refinance. So you can see that red on the bottom of the first past due. 80% of those loans are under a 1.0, 66%, $2 billion of the $3 billion in past due are under a 1.0 DSCR, right? Debt service coverage ratio. Right now, you typically need a 1.25 DSCR to get a loan. Are we seeing the beginnings of some serious problem? It's kind of extend and pretend that we're in. I'd love to get your thoughts on that.
I think what you just put up there explains why you've got H. Michael Shorts raising $350 million in Maple bonds, and you've got Extra Space raising $100 million as well. They've got such great data. They obviously know this data. I mean, if Armand knows it, they know it. They can see some of the cracks in the system. I think they're just waiting until these CMBS loans and or banks, they stop this, what's called extend and pretend. Everyone sort of thinks, hey, you know what, let's just give you a little more extension. As a bank or CMBS person specifically, I definitely don't want to be dealing with an asset. So it's like, look, hopefully this thing can make itself up. We can get this DSCR back up. But again, if nobody's moving, which is why we started with the 50-year mortgage piece, I don't see demand going up dramatically either. And even in Las Vegas, you had Joe Margolis say, look, it's been a slower downtrend in storage. It's probably going to be a slower uptrend. So I would guess these guys are sort of crossing their fingers and hoping that rates turn around and demand turns around and rates start to go up, meaning rental rates. And I just don't see that happening, which is, again, why these guys at Smart Stop and Extra, like, hey, let's go raise some capital so we can be ready to just go, boom, we'll buy that, we'll buy that, we'll buy that, and, buy a bunch of great assets up.
It's so interesting to me. There's so many different directions to go. I just had Tim Ryan on. He's an appraiser with Newmark out of New York City, does a 200 appraisals a year in the Northeast market in the United States, and said something to me that I thought was fascinating. He's like, transaction velocity is picking up markedly in the second half of 2025. So are some of these issues going to get saved by people buying under construction cost? Had another conversation with a gent who I won't mention, out of Colorado. They're a massive company nationwide, and I don't really want to say his name just because of what he shared with me, which is that They have so much access to institutional capital right now that cap rates are being kept artificially compressed. We've had this conversation with SmartStop and Extra Space, and people buying things still at 5 caps when a traditional bank note's at 6.5. But if you've got JP Morgan investing hundreds of millions of dollars in you to go buy storage, and they're not looking for a 19-20% IRR like an LP investor might be, you can buy at a 5.25 cap. We heard, Joe Russell in the Public Storage, they're buying at a 5.25 cap. So are we seeing some of this get saved? I guess my question becomes, if you've got $2 billion of CMBS loans that are under a 1.0 DSCR, and the bank is extending their IO by a year, are they really going to get to a 1.25 in a year where they can refi out of that? It's hard to imagine that that's going to happen. And by the way, a bunch more that were below 1.25, right? Yeah, 2 billion's below 1, but you got to be at 1.25 to get refied. Could this be another thing? You mentioned Quiver, arrow in the quiver. We're starting to see them add up.
I was just going to say, I think, again, this speaks to that mid 2026 to late 2026. You and I have asked repeatedly, hey, if you've got a way to break this thesis or break through and punch holes in it, please share with us because we would love to see it. As of the moment, I'm just not seeing a lot of holes in the thesis, which I think the next maybe conversation for you and I to start to have that, and maybe that comes in December, but okay, we're starting to see the writing on the wall for this mid to late 2026 breakdown. Now, what do you do to prepare, right? Do you go into cash? Do you go into metals, commodities? I mean, I don't want to, this isn't investment advice, but I think those are the kind of conversations you want to start ruminating in your mind and going, all right, if this thesis bears out to be true, what do I do to protect my capital so that as these things go on sale, I'm ready to deploy? Because then you can be like H. Michael Schwartz and Joe Margolis and hopefully buy some good assets on a discount.
Speaking of conversations, Chris, I want to tease next week. We have a very special show. We're going to deviate from the norm a little bit. We've got an amazing roundtable of ground up self-storage developers. Obviously, there's been a massive contraction in that space. Cam Pactonat, managing director of DXD Capital, Lauren Feeney, who's the director of acquisitions for Trojan Storage, and Matthew Beggs, who's the director of acquisitions for the Feldman Companies. Really excited to have the three of them. Obviously, you and I in our day jobs, when we're not moonlighting as podcast hosts, we are also developers of ground up self-storage. So really excited to bring the five of us together. You guys, that's next week. We'll be back on our normal day of Thursday. Programming note, the following Thursday's Thanksgiving. Chris and I do not want to do a show while high on tryptophan, so we'll likely do a Wednesday show that week as well. Big announcement for the show, Chris, and I want to share this with everyone. Very, very excited. You and I both have utmost respect for Brett Henry of Trojan Storage. He has taken over the Quick Store brand revenue management software. They are going to be our new title sponsor kicking off on December 1st. You can visit them at quickstore.com, the link below. We'll have much more on them as we embark on this journey, but want to give a shout out to Brett Henry and the whole team at Quick Store. Chris and I could not be more excited to bring them on as the title sponsor of our show. Speaking of people that support the show, had a great conversation earlier this week with our partner, our risk partner, Terry Campbell of Johnson Insurance. Terry's 30 plus years in the self-storage business. And as he looks at different portfolios and different assets and he interacts with customers, he gets to really see what's going on the forefront of the insurance side of it. Chris, we had Terry on the show a month ago. He was able to share with us that the increases in premiums have slowed down quite a bit. So we aren't seeing that massive risk. I told you I had Tim Ryan, appraiser from Newmark, on earlier today. 100% increase he's seen in insurance premiums on the assets he's appraising between 22 and 25. So it's been immense pressure. What Terry's seeing now, and I'm going to share a clip from him, is a significantly different challenge for asset owners. And I want you to hear this from Terry Campbell of Johnson Insurance.
Terry Campbell with Johnson Insurance, working with a customer on moving a portfolio over this week. And one of the things we see is something we see quite often. They're not properly insured. They don't have the right replacement cost. They don't have the right information. This particular one, missing buildings. Entire buildings were missing. Square foot for replacement was low, and total square footage was off. This could really affect them if they have an event. They're going to be unhappy. They were not properly insured. Make sure you're working with someone that knows what they're doing to help you through this process.
Terry Campbell of Johnson Insurance. You guys can reach out to them for a free review of your portfolio or your asset. Go JohnsonInsurance.com. You can see the link at the bottom. Chris, obviously, you're out in California. You were there for the wildfires that ran through a year and a half ago. I mean, can you imagine if you had a devastating thing? We had the hurricanes in Florida. We've seen natural events become much more common. Imagine your facility gets affected and all of a sudden your insurance agent comes and you had a whole building in your facility that wasn't covered with insurance.
Yeah, I mean, a few things there. Terry is part of the business. I mean, he owns assets, he gets it, he invests, so he understands the importance of what it means to be a part of this just amazing asset class. Number one, so when you're going to sit down with him, again, it's free. Doesn't hurt you at least to give him a call and just reach out and go, hey, let's just take an assessment of what I've got going on here in the insurance world, because the last thing you want is this sort of unbelievable event that could take place. Nobody anticipated the fires were going to be as rampant as they were out here in Los Angeles. And yet, if you would have had a self-storage asset that got impacted by that and you didn't have buildings covered, I mean, that's going to set you back a long, long way. So take a few minutes, reach out to Terry, very amicable, easy to talk to. He knows the biz. I think he'll do you a great service just by telling you at least, hey, you're in good hands, you're good, keep doing what you're doing, or maybe you can add some value and share with his ways to maybe cut costs or just ensure, hey, if there is a bad thing that happens, you're fully insured.
So many great folks in the self-storage industry, but Terry, universally respected for all he's done in this industry. Cannot go wrong having him at least take a look for you. So, Chris, I want to go back to something I sort of mentioned earlier, which was you did an amazing interview earlier this week. For those of you, as I said earlier, check out the YouTube channel, the Self-Storage Report Spotlight. You talked to the Dave King and Dave Brown from Wentworth Properties. Want to tell me a little bit about that conversation, what spawned the conversation, and what you took out of it?
Yeah, these are a couple of gentlemen that have been in the business for a long, long time. And again, I think you can always grow from other people's stories, experiences in this industry. And so they went from 0 to 1.5 billion with a B, $1.5 billion in self-storage assets from development, acquisitions, all different kind of ways that they've gone out and built great assets. And so one of the things that really jumped out to me in this conversation is you have a lot of people that are stuck in Excel documents and going, hey, look, I want to go build this great site, but I got to make sure it pencils for me. And sometimes you forget, hey, I've got to go and make a $20 million investment potentially that's going to serve the market. Like that's how you're going to actually make this thing really sing from a NOI perspective. And so I appreciate the fact these guys are going out and almost kind of reverse engineering. They go into a market, find out what the needs are. And from there, they begin to go, okay, this is how we want to put this asset together. And so we talked about that a little bit. And here's a clip of what they had to say about it. So do you guys have a marketing arm that's literally calling up people in the community and saying, hey, we're going to build this. What do you want? Or what's your...
If you want to call Dave and I getting in the truck and go out and talking to managers, the marketing arm, I mean, that's what it is. That's the kind of intel you got to go out and get, right? You can't just look at it on Google and make a $15 to $18 million business decision based off of just what you see on a computer. You got to get out there and talk to managers and see what's going on in the real world.
I mean, one last thing I want to add there, Thad, is they went out to some assets in the area. They were going to put an asset in place. And so they asked one of the managers, hey, what do you need here? And the manager was kind of like, look, I've got 5 pages of people that want this kind of, storage. And so obviously they said, great, you don't have that. We'll put that in place to, give that opportunity for people within this community. And so I just think it's a really powerful way to look at how you want to build assets to at least, again, doesn't ensure you're going to have a successful asset, but you're trying to mitigate risk as much as you can.
Love that. I picked up on that clip immediately. And it goes to something you and I have been talking about for a while. The greatest threat to self-storage is irresponsible development. And in our opinion, right, you oversaturate markets, or even maybe it's not oversaturated, but you put the wrong product for what that market really needs. And that's an example of 2 gentlemen who are, listen, it's not easy to go out and do that work, right? It's much easier to sit in your office with the heater sitting next to you, pumping warm air on your legs and, go on Tract IQ and see those rates. But the reality is, until you get out in the field, you're not going to see the true nature of what's going on in a market.
Well, I just want to share one more thing. Like the Thad and I's mission here, as he talked about, we want to give you 30 minutes to make the smartest self-storage investments that you possibly can. We are going to have some, other information we can share with you, because we just want to give back to the community. If you're someone that's looking at self-storage, that you can learn from people. This is 20 plus years of experience in self-storage and interview. Again, 0 to $1.5 billion in assets. And the first thing I asked him was, hey, look, knowing what you know now, what do you wish you knew then when you first got started? So again, I think I would encourage you to go watch these different interviews that Thad and I are doing, to just hear what they have to say about what you can be doing to mitigate risk and make really good investment decisions in this asset class.
Yeah, I had a great conversation this week with Rana Siegel, who's the National Director of Third Party Management for the William Warren Group. Obviously, their brand StoreQuest, which is very strong, nationally present. Kind of cool. Barry Sherman, president of S3 Partners, my employer, helped Bill Hubin build his very first ground up self storage development for StoreQuest. So that's kind of cool. But a few things from Rana that I took away that were fantastic. First of all, she talked about the challenges going on in the market and consolidation and how important it is. We're seeing a shift right now across the industry. Of course, Extra Space still manages more sites than anybody else, over 2,000 stores that they third party manage. Public, that's kind of not their core business model, but they do manage a bunch of stores. CubeSmart, obviously, big in that business. We're starting to see a shift, Chris, to non-REIT third-party management, and she's definitely at the forefront of that. She wanted to urge people that are in the market, hey, make sure if you are going to go with third-party management that maybe is not a REIT, that it's somebody who has experience with what's going on today and the amount of data that you need to be able to really adjust rates correctly. You need to make sure, and Rana's awesome. She was like, hey, maybe it's not William Warren Group, maybe it's not StoreQuest that's best for you, but reach out to us anyway, and we'll give you insight into that market and maybe even tell you who the best person to go there is. That was an awesome conversation. I was able to touch on the discount strategies and ECRIs, and she made an awesome comment there. Said, hey, the reality is this is what's going on in the market, and to stay competitive, you have to be doing it. But they've been very smart in the way they prepare for it. And I want to have you hear straight from Rana herself what the William Warren Group is doing to make sure that, yes, they have these customer rate increases in place, but how are you dealing with it, especially when a customer might get upset and reach out to them?
We have only 5 people in the entire 24/7 call center that can negotiate those, but they answer the one phone number that every customer is given. You have to do this to remain competitive. You really do. You're absolutely right. I think if you are near REITs or have them in your 2 mile or 5 mile, there is a math game that's being played. You just need to be savvy, but you also need to be prepared to sometimes come back off that if you're going to lose a customer.
Thought that was incredible insight from Rana and the William Warren Group. Like, look, here's the reality. In order to play the game with Public Storage and Extra Space and these super huge REITs, you have 300 stores, they have 3,000. You've got to play their game, but be ready to make sure you answer the phone if somebody gives you blowback.
And how do you win that game? Like you just mentioned, 300 to 3,000. I mean, if Extra Space, again, we've talked about this before, loses money in one asset in a particular city, obviously they don't want to, but they got 2,999 more to make that up. You start losing money in a couple assets in an arena or a particular geographic area, it stings. And so it's an interesting game to play, because those guys can go down to almost zero and they're going to be okay, where obviously it's much tougher if you don't have a lot of assets.
Yeah, Public Storage, 600 million in cash after paying dividends in the third quarter of 2025. They can take an L in a store that you just can't afford to take an L in. One more quick thing from Rana that I thought was awesome is an anecdotal story. She is super involved on the board of directors of the New York Self Storage Association. The investment forum coming up, we're going to talk about that in a minute, January 7th. But I asked her why that involvement, why is it so important? And she shared a story of something that happened in New York and really is why she thinks it's so important to be involved in your local SSAs.
A young lady had her unit auctioned off and her passport was in the unit. We would have no idea that the passport's in there if it's in a box or in a drawer. And they were trying to pass a law that would require hotel safes in every storage unit.
Imagine a storage facility with 700 units. Some of them in Manhattan are like average 5x5s. They've got 5,000 units in one storage facility, and you got to put a lockbox safe in every single one of them. Talk about destroying NOI. Big reason SSAs are so important.
Yeah, you pretty much summed that up pretty well. Not much more I can add other than just, thank goodness they're going to push back. And some of the legislators, like we've said many times on the show, the last place you want to be is on the lips of legislators.
100%. I'm going to throw up this graphic real quick showing some of the incredible upcoming events that we have. I mentioned January 7th. Chris, for my money, this is the most important informational event of the year. We couldn't have two more opposite type of events there on the top of this upcoming event. The investment forum is like 7 hours of nonstop information. All 6 REITs will be on stage at the same time: Public, Extra, Cube, NSA, U-Haul, and SmartStop, a new addition to that board, that roundtable that'll happen, which is pretty cool. On January 7th, you can sign up for that at the New York Self-Storage Association website. And then the executive ski workshop, where the daily agenda is yoga at 7, one event at 9 a.m., 9:45, pack up for the slopes and go skiing. Incredible networking opportunity, fun time out in the beautiful Rocky Mountains in Colorado. So I will be at both of them. I'm hoping, Chris, you have your ski parka packed and ready to go. And then, of course, the big event in San Antonio, the spring conference in March in San Antonio. So wanted to keep you guys abreast of what's coming up on the calendar for SSA events. You going to join me out in Colorado? We going to get you skiing?
We'll see, man. I haven't been on the slopes for a long, last time I went skiing was in Utah with Tony Robbins.
Nice.
Last time I went
Last time I went skiing was in Vermont with my mom, and it's been 20 years. So if you see me
Yeah.
with cats on my legs, in late January on the self-storage report, we'll know exactly why that is happening. Looking forward to it, though, hoping that we can have some fun out there. Guys, I want to give a shout out, as always. We've mentioned a little bit during the course of the show, our friends at Tract IQ, leaders in the industry and the data side of it. Noah Starr doing such an amazing job. He was on the show last week. I was going to give a shout out to him, but my production abilities are failing me, and I don't have Noah's beautiful face to throw up. Unbelievable. He's making it his mission to get more data out there. It's something I talked to Tim Ryan about earlier today. You cannot find out what the achieved rates are unless you have that data yourself. Tract IQ is working on making that more accessible to the industry. Of course, you and I, as developers, that's something everybody in the industry could use. So Noah Starr, Tract IQ, shout out to them. Very, very proud to have them as our data partners on the show.
Yeah, and I
Chris,
just encourage you real quickly, as you go there, go to tractiq.com. Again, it's a free consultation. So just go there. It's free. You really get a good idea of how they can help you better underwrite. Again, always mitigating risk, making better investment decisions, and just tell them, hey, the self-storage report, I heard about you guys on the self-storage report. They may even give you an opportunity there. We're working on some things for you. So just tell them the self-storage report, send them to you there, and we'll work something out for you from there.
yeah, definitely mention the self-storage report. You're going to save yourself some money there and check out that demo. We mentioned earlier, listen, your Wentworth guys said it. You got to get boots on the ground and you got to go out to spend time, but you can't go put boots on the ground in everything that you ever look at for a self-storage asset, whether it's an existing facility or it's a ground-up development. There's just not enough time to look at all of it. This is where Tract IQ is so valuable in narrowing down your search and just getting those few select great properties that you're then going to go spend a lot of time digging in deeper. Chris, I saved the best for last. Really excited this week. We debuted How Faith Fuels Your Business with Cam Paxton a couple weeks ago. You're going to be our second guest. You spent your weekend. I was talking to you on the car ride on Friday last week, down south of the border. I want you to talk to me a little bit about how faith fuels the business of Chris Berg at Abernathy Holdings, and tell me a little bit about your weekend and what you did and why it's so important to you.
Yeah, I mean, I think the faith is the foundation of what I'm doing from a business perspective. I really see, my business as a ministry, and yet the Mexico conversation situation, the same, but a little bit different from the standpoint that a while back, God really spoke to me that, hey, you need to go down and start planting some seeds in Mexico. So I've been looking for an opportunity to do that. A friend of mine told me about a book called Inner Excellence by Jim Murphy. Great, great book. And by the grace of God, he happened to be building some homes in Mexico and doing like an Inner Excellence seminar. The timing was perfect. I went on his website. It was like 2-3 weeks away. And I'm sure you've had this situation, Thad, where the Holy Spirit just hits you. You're like, you just got to go do it. I really didn't ask any questions. I just signed up, did what I needed to do to get myself ready to go down there. And I just felt in my heart and my soul like this was going to be a special excursion. Didn't know why, didn't know what. And then I got down there and then it was revealed. We went to a family with a single mom, 5 kids. Uh, I've not been around great poverty in my life. And so it was very eye opening where you walk up, there's no electricity, there's no running water, there's no car. She's using a lighter to like put this gas little, oven up to make some food. The kitchen, if you will, if you want to call it that, and the cupboards are all outside. There's one enclosed room that you walk into that 5 people are sleeping on literally the ground. But the thing that really transformed my soul is that she had this young daughter, about, I don't know, maybe 12 or 13. And when you showed up, just you could just see her light was gone. Like someone had just stolen her soul, and it was just crushing to see. So we started to build the whole thing is it's called Homes for Hope. And you go down and you build homes for these people. This mom's been praying for 6 years. They've been living in the church at times. I mean, just all over the place, right? No car, supermarket's an hour away. I mean, just it's a really compelling story. I've got an interview I actually did with the mom, where she told a little bit about her story up on my YouTube channel, which I just think is extraordinarily moving. But back to this young woman. So the next day, we take the family out and we go get groceries, and you go to like a Walmart just to help get them going with this new house, right? So because God had really just given me a soft spot for this young girl, I was like, hey, let's go try to find you like, a dress or some nice clothes. And she ends up like choosing a jacket because she just wants to be warm, right? And then I'm like, hey, let's go get some toys. She's like, I don't really know what I want because I don't have any toys. She doesn't have any toys, right? And you're just like, crushes your soul again. So we ended up getting her like a stuffed animal. And then the day before, her mom like was going to have her play a violin for me. She's been trying to learn the violin and didn't really work because her bow wasn't working that well. So I had a guy down there go find me a bow for her. And right after they got the house, I gave the bow to this young girl, and she's, I mean, super timid, that like this, scared of her own shadow kind of thing. But getting a chance to spend some time with her at Walmart, and I was just telling her how special she is and how special her soul is. And so, anyways, I'm getting ready to go on the bus where we're going to leave now. They've seen their house. They're going to move in that night. And the brother comes running out and he's like, hey, she wants to play her violin for you. I mean, that's such a big deal if you met this young girl, right? And I wish I could play for you right now. But so I'm like, of course I want to see that. And so I come over, and she grabs her violin and the new bow, and I don't know anything about violin, so it didn't really work at first because apparently you've got to like put something on the bow. So we did that. And then, man, she grabs the violin, bro, and starts playing Amazing Grace. Like it was just so moving. And my point is, the fact that she can get any sound out of an instrument is a miracle. But then you put in the context, no running water, no electricity, no car, like her mom homeschool. Like it was just such an
Stacked
incredibly
against
moving experience. I'm sorry?
everything stacked against her, and yet here she does something. If you can't believe in God and the Holy Spirit when you experience a moment like that.
Well, and the fact she drops Amazing Grace, it just was like, are you and the way she like, look, it's not like you're gonna put her in a huge concert tomorrow. She's a beginner, but even just the way it kind of came out of the instrument, it was just like this sadness to it, right? Where you're just like, and that was the thing I kept like, how you're just trying to eat. I mean, you're just trying to stay warm. How do you start to help her create a vision for her life? And I don't know if I have that answer other than I think what was so incredibly rewarding is that you just realize that, hey, by having a home that now is going to have electricity and some water, like they still have to go outside to go to the bathroom. They don't have a shower, but you just go, may have just changed generations. I mean, literally generations of this family by giving them some safety and security, right? So it was just a really powerful moment for me, experience. And what's funny because you and I often talk about writing things down, how they come to fruition, right? So a few years ago, I wrote down that the philanthropy I want to do is going to be within Mexico and El Salvador and Argentina. My heart for young people. Well, the group that we were building the homes with is a youth Christian ministry group. So it just was like, okay, God, this is perfect. I'm going to go out and start helping these people raise money. Um, one last thing I'll share about building the house that I was really happy about is that we ended up writing scripture like on the foundation of the wood and things like that. So just giving it some extra sort of supernatural protection for that family. And it was just, I can't say enough. If you ever get a chance to go down there and do something like this, uh, just say yes and you'll figure it out later because it's that moving and that powerful of an experience.
Chris Berg, I love you, brother. You know that. I tell you that all the time. I don't always say it on the self-storage report, but I'll say it today. Incredibly motivating, and thanks so much for sharing the story of your trip.
Thanks for giving me a chance, man. I mean, it was just beautiful, powerful, and my soul is definitely transformed after it.
If you guys are viewers of the show, you enjoy our content, know that Chris and I are both deeply religious and believe that if there's not a purpose above and beyond just making money in your business, you're doing it for the wrong reason. And Chris embodies that in everything that he does. So appreciate you, brother. So happy you're my co-host for the self-storage report. I want to give you a chance. You know, obviously we have day jobs and you're looking for dirt for Abernathy Holdings. If somebody's got some dirt in California and they want to have you take a look at it and see if it's an opportunity there, how do they get a hold of Chris Berg, the business side of it?
Thank you, man. First off, I love you too. It's been great to do the show with you. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to share that about my experience in Mexico. There's going to be many, many more to come. We're going to start bringing people from the storage industry down there as well. And then, yeah, if you want to reach out, we're looking for dirt in Arizona and California to build great assets. So if you've got something you think might work for us, just reach out to me. As you can see here, it's cb@abernathyholdingco.com. You can cb@abernathyholdingco.com. We'll love to close some deals with you.
I, of course, am the director of business development at S3 Partners. I almost said S3 Holdings. Almost made me into an Abernathy. Director of business development at S3 Partners. We do owner's rep and project management work. We will underwrite deals for you. Anything you have going on that you may be unsure of a different part of it. Our expertise is from finding dirt all the way through handing the keys over to third-party management when that thing is built. So if you need any help, whether it's self-storage, small bay flex, boat and RV, IOS, we are experts in those fields. So don't be afraid to reach out to me if you need any help with a project. That is it for this week's episode. I promised you it was going to be jam-packed. I like to think we delivered on that promise. We will be back next week, and don't miss next week's show. As I mentioned, we've got Lauren Feeney, absolute A-plus player, Cam Pactonat, first person to share how faith fuels your business with us, amazing guy, and Matt Beggs of the Feldman Companies, a company that's building a bunch of self-storage projects around the country, will join Chris and I to talk about the state of ground-up development. I'm Thaddeus Campbell. He's the handsome and the brains of this operation. Chris Berg, we will see you next week on the Self-Storage Report.